Throughout American history, certain cases have captured the public imagination not because they were solved, but because they remain shrouded in mystery. Tonight, we explore three chilling, unsolved cases that continue to haunt investigators and fascinate true crime enthusiasts decades later. These are stories where the questions outnumber the answers, where evidence leads to dead ends, and where the truth remains frustratingly out of reach. Our first story takes us back to Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family was settling in for the night when their lives changed forever. Around 1 in the morning, a fire consumed their home. George and Jenny Sodder escaped with 4 of their 10 children, but 5 others seemingly perished in the blaze. There was 14-year-old Maurice, 12-year-old Martha, 9-year-old Louie, 8-year-old Jenny, and little 5-year-old Betty. But here's where the mystery truly deepens. When investigators sifted through the ashes, they found something deeply disturbing. There were no remains, no bones, no trace of the 5 children. Fire investigators claimed the blaze burned hot enough to cremate the bodies, but George Sodder, who worked in the trucking business, knew this didn't make sense. House fires simply don't reach cremation temperatures. The family then began noticing other strange details. The phone lines had been cut. The ladder they kept outside, which could have helped rescue the children, had been moved. George's trucks wouldn't start that night, even though they had worked fine earlier. And a strange man had been seen watching the children in the days before the fire. In the months that followed, witnesses came forward with startling claims. A woman said she saw the children at a restaurant with 2 men and 2 women the morning after the fire. A hotel owner reported seeing 4 of the Sodder children with Italian-speaking adults. A private investigator even claimed to have found one of the daughters, but the lead just evaporated. George and Jenny Sodder spent the rest of their lives searching. They put up a billboard with the children's photos, offered rewards, and hired investigators. But they never found answers. George died in 1969, Jenny in 1989, both still believing their children had been kidnapped, not killed. The question remains, what really happened to the Sodder children that Christmas Eve? Were they taken? If so, by whom and why? And if they survived, where did they go? Next, we traveled to Los Angeles, California, on January 15, 1947. A mother and her young daughter were walking through a vacant lot in the Lamert Park neighborhood when they made a gruesome discovery. At first, the mother thought it was just a discarded mannequin. She was wrong. The victim was Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress. The crime scene was shocking even to hardened detectives. Elizabeth's body had been carefully posed and drained of blood. The precision suggested someone with anatomical knowledge, possibly medical training. The media nicknamed her the Black Dahlia, supposedly because she wore black clothing and had dark hair, though the origin of the name remains debated. The case became a sensation. Reporters followed every lead, and the public was both horrified and fascinated. The investigation generated over 150 suspects and more than 500 confessions, all of which were eventually ruled out. Tips flooded in from across the country. Some pointed to gangsters, others suspected a doctor or surgeon. Several names emerged as strong possibilities, but none ever led to an arrest. One prominent suspect was George Hodel, a doctor whose own son, decades later, would become convinced of his father's guilt. Another was a nightclub owner with connections to organized crime. A third was a man who had been seen with Elizabeth in the days before her death. But the evidence was circumstantial at best. The killer left no witnesses. No murder weapon was ever found. And if there were forensic clues, they were lost to the investigative techniques of the 1940s. Elizabeth Short came to Los Angeles with dreams, like thousands of others. She wanted to be discovered, to become a star. Instead, she became the victim of one of America's most famous unsolved cases. More than 75 years later, her killer's identity remains unknown. Finally, we head to Northern California in the late 1960s. A killer emerged who didn't just commit crimes, he taunted authorities. He sent encrypted letters to newspapers, claimed responsibility for numerous attacks, and gave himself a name that would become infamous: the Zodiac. His confirmed attacks began in December 1968 in Benicia, California. Two high school students, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, were on their first date when they were shot and killed. 7 months later, another young couple was attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo. Darlene Farron died. Her companion, Michael Mageau, survived and provided a description of the attacker. Just 2 weeks after that attack, 3 newspapers received letters. Each contained 1/3 of a cipher. The writer claimed to be the killer and said the cipher revealed his identity. The code was cracked by a local couple, but it didn't reveal a name. Instead, it contained disturbing ramblings about collecting slaves for the afterlife. In September 1969, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were attacked at Lake Berryessa. The killer wore an executioner-style hood with a crosshair symbol. He tied them up and stabbed them repeatedly. Cecilia died. Brian survived and described the attacker's voice and mannerisms. 2 weeks later, taxi driver Paul Stein was shot and killed in San Francisco. The Zodiac sent a piece of the victim's blood-stained shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle as proof. Witnesses saw a man leaving the scene, leading to a composite sketch that became one of the most recognizable images in true crime history. The letters continued. Some contained more ciphers, diagrams, and symbols. In them, the Zodiac claimed 37 victims, though investigators only confirmed 7 attacks and 5 deaths. He threatened to kill children on school buses and mocked the police for their inability to catch him. Then, in 1974, the letters stopped. The Zodiac simply vanished. Over the decades, thousands of suspects have been investigated. Arthur Lee Allen became the prime suspect, but evidence was insufficient to charge him, and he died in 1992. In recent years, advances in DNA technology and code breaking have generated new leads. In 2020, a team of code breakers even solved one of the Zodiac's ciphers that had remained uncracked for 51 years. But it didn't reveal his identity. The question persists: who was the Zodiac Killer? And perhaps most chillingly, did he really stop in 1974? Or did he simply stop taking credit? These stories remind us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't identify. The questions they leave behind echo through generations. Thanks for watching. If you found these cases as compelling as we do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more dives into history's greatest mysteries. In September 1982, a wave of terror swept through Chicago. It didn't come from a masked assailant or a shadowy figure in the night. It came from a medicine cabinet. It came in a bottle of extra-strength Tylenol. The first victim was 12-year-old Mary Kellerman. She woke up with a cold, took a Tylenol, and collapsed just hours later. The same day, postal worker Adam Janus died after taking a capsule for chest pain. As his grieving family gathered, his brother and sister-in-law took Tylenol from the very same bottle. They both died within hours. The horror continued. 3 more victims, Mary McFarland, Paula Prince, and Mary Rayner, succumbed. The common link was undeniable. Tylenol capsules laced with deadly potassium cyanide. Investigators quickly realized this wasn't a factory mistake. Someone was deliberately poisoning the public. They were buying the bottles, tampering with the capsules, and secretly returning them to store shelves for unsuspecting victims to purchase. The nation was gripped by panic. Johnson & Johnson, Tylenol's parent company, launched a massive recall, pulling 31 million bottles off the shelves, a move that cost over $100 million. This single act of terror forever changed consumer safety, leading directly to the tamper-evident seals we see on almost every product today. But the central question remained unanswered. Who did it? An extortionist named James Lewis sent a letter demanding $1 million to stop the killings, but he was just an opportunist, not the poisoner. Even the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, was investigated and cleared. Was it someone with inside access? A person with a deep-seated grudge against society? Or was it a twisted plot to cover up a single murder amidst the chaos? Despite a massive investigation and years of work, no one was ever charged. The Tylenol murders left a legacy of safety, but denied justice to 7 innocent people. Now we travel back to February 1957 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A college student was checking his traps in a wooded area when he stumbled upon a discarded cardboard box. Inside, wrapped in a plaid blanket, was the body of a small boy. He was between 4 and 6 years old, malnourished, and bore the marks of severe, long-term abuse. His hair had been recently and crudely cut. The cause of death was blunt force trauma. This discovery marked the beginning of one of America's most heartbreaking mysteries, the case of the boy in the box. Police launched a massive effort to identify him. In a desperate move, they circulated the boy's post-mortem photograph, hoping anyone would recognize him. The image haunted the nation. Flyers went up in every post office, but every lead went cold. A woman came forward with a story about a cruel foster home, but her claims could never be verified. The community mourned this lost child, adopting him as their own. He was buried in a donated plot with a tombstone that read, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." For decades, the case remained cold, a persistent ache in the heart of the city. But time brought technology. Decades later, investigators exhumed the boy's body to extract DNA. Using the revolutionary technique of genetic genealogy, they began painstakingly building a family tree. Finally, in 2022, 65 years after he was found, the boy was given back his name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli. He was born in January 1953. While his parents were identified, both had long since passed away. Knowing his name was a monumental breakthrough, but it didn't solve the case. Who killed him? Why was he treated so cruelly? The investigation is still active, But one crucial piece of the puzzle is now in place. He is no longer just the boy in the box. He is Joseph. Our final case takes us to Detroit, Michigan on July 30th, 1975. Jimmy Hoffa, the powerful and controversial former president of the Teamsters Union, was heading to a meeting at the Machus Red Fox restaurant. He told his wife he'd be back by 4 o'clock. He was never seen or heard from again. Hoffa was a giant in the American labor movement, but his career was shadowed by allegations of corruption and deep ties to organized crime. After serving time in prison, he was released on the condition that he stay out of union politics. But Hoffa wasn't the type to sit on the sidelines. He was fighting to reclaim his power, making powerful enemies in both the mob and the union he once led. That afternoon, he was supposedly meeting two notorious figures, a Teamster official with mob connections and a Detroit crime boss. Both men denied the meeting ever existed. Witnesses saw Hoffa waiting impatiently in the restaurant's parking lot. Around 2:30, he called his wife, frustrated that the men hadn't shown up. That was the last anyone heard from him. His unlocked car was found right where he'd left it. The theories about what happened are the stuff of legend. Was he silenced by the mob to stop him from exposing their secrets? Was he eliminated by rivals within the union? The speculation about where his body is buried has become American folklore. Under Giant Stadium, in a Florida swamp, encased in concrete at a construction site. Despite countless tips, excavations, and the use of ground-penetrating radar, his remains have never been found. In 1982, Jimmy Hoffa was declared legally dead. His disappearance remains one of the most famous and enduring unsolved mysteries in the annals of American crime. A ghost that still haunts the intersection of power, politics, and the criminal underworld. 6 cases, 6 enduring mysteries. What do these chilling stories tell us about crime, justice, and our shared human need for answers? These cases span nearly 4 decades, from 1945 to 1982. They range from mysterious disappearances and brutal murders to a terrifying act of public poisoning. They happened in different corners of the country, under vastly different circumstances. Yet they all share powerful common threads. First, they captured the public's imagination like few others. They evolved beyond simple crime reports into full-blown cultural phenomena. The Zodiac Killer's cryptic ciphers turned everyday citizens into amateur code breakers. The Black Dahlia's tragic story inspired countless books and films, becoming a dark legend. The Tylenol murders fundamentally changed the way we purchase and trust the products on our shelves. These cases seeped into the American consciousness, and they have never left. Second, they starkly illustrate the limitations of their era. Before the advent of DNA analysis, before the ubiquity of digital surveillance, before the advanced forensic techniques we take for granted today, investigators had to rely on eyewitness statements, physical evidence that quickly degraded, and good old-fashioned shoe-leather detective work. It is a sobering thought that many of these cases might be solvable today with technology that simply didn't exist when the crimes occurred. And third, they reveal something profound about human nature itself. The families never, ever stopped searching. The Sodders put up billboards for decades, clinging to the hope their children were alive. The investigators assigned to the boy in the box case visited his grave year after year, refusing to let him be just a statistic. Entire communities rallied around victims they had never even met. These cases show us both the terrifying depths of human cruelty and the incredible, inspiring refusal to forget the victims. In recent years, incredible advances in forensic science have breathed new life into cold cases once thought unsolvable. DNA analysis, genetic genealogy, advanced computer modeling, and digital forensics are cracking cases that had been gathering dust for decades. Just look at the boy in the box. He was finally identified in 2022 as Joseph Augustus Zarelli, thanks to the power of genetic genealogy, the very same technique that unmasked the Golden State Killer. Investigators are right now re-examining evidence from the Zodiac case, hoping modern DNA techniques can pull a profile from letters sent over 50 years ago. Even cases from the 1940s are being revisited with technology that would have seemed like pure science fiction to the original detectives. But technology isn't a magic wand. For DNA analysis to work, you need a viable sample that hasn't degraded. Genetic genealogy depends on having relatives of the person of interest in public DNA databases. And digital forensics, of course, requires digital evidence, which is non-existent in these older cases. Much of the physical evidence from these investigations has been lost, contaminated, or has simply degraded over time. Still, the hope persists. And with every new technological leap, the possibility that these iconic mysteries might finally be solved grows stronger. Behind every sensational headline and every chilling detail, there are real people. Families who were denied closure, communities that were forever scarred, and victims who still deserve justice. The Sauter family spent a lifetime tortured by the unknown, never certain if their children perished in the fire or were living somewhere else entirely. Elizabeth Short's mother outlived her daughter by more than 30 years, passing away in 1977 without ever knowing who was responsible for such a brutal act. The families of the Zodiac's victims had to live with the terrifying knowledge that their loved one's killer was still out there, possibly living a normal life, taunting the world. The victims of the Tylenol murders were just ordinary people going about their day. A 12-year-old girl with a cold, a postal worker with chest pain, a new mother just home from the hospital. Their deaths were random, senseless, and ultimately preventable. For 65 years, Joseph Zarelli was nameless, known only as the boy in the box. Jimmy Hoffa's children grew up without a father, never having a grave to visit, never knowing what truly happened to him. These aren't just famous cases. They are profound human tragedies, with ripples of pain that have spread through generations of families and communities. In recent years, true crime has exploded in popularity. Podcasts, documentaries, and online forums dedicated to solving cold cases are everywhere. But what is it about these dark stories that we find so compelling? Why can't we look away? Part of the appeal is the puzzle. An unsolved case is an irresistible mystery. It invites us to participate, to connect the dots. Anyone with an internet connection can now access case files, examine evidence photos, and formulate their own theories. The Zodiac's ciphers still attract dedicated code breakers, all hoping to be the one who finally cracks them. Amateur sleuths spend hours digging through old newspaper archives, searching for a forgotten detail that investigators might have missed. It's also about our innate need for justice. These cases offend our fundamental sense of right and wrong. We crave resolution. We want to see the guilty held accountable, and we want to see the families find some measure of peace. We want to believe that the system, in the end, works. And perhaps, on a deeper level, it's about confronting our own fears from a safe distance. These stories are stark reminders that terrible things can happen to anyone, at any time. But by studying them, discussing them, and trying to understand them, we gain a small feeling of control over a chaotic and sometimes frightening world. Despite the decades that have passed, these cases remain officially open. Law enforcement agencies have not given up. New tips are still investigated. Evidence is periodically re-examined with new technology. And every so often, there's a breakthrough. The FBI continues to solicit information about the Zodiac Killer. Now that they have his name, Philadelphia police are actively investigating who killed Joseph Zarelli. The Tylenol case remains open with both the FBI and local authorities. And Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance is still an active, ongoing investigation. For the Sodder children and the Black Dahlia, the chances of finding a definitive answer diminish with each passing year. Key witnesses are gone. Critical evidence has been lost to time, but the stories and the questions endure. These 6 cases, in their tragedy, have taught law enforcement invaluable lessons. The Tylenol murders led directly to the tamper-evident packaging that has undoubtedly saved countless lives since. The Zodiac case helped police departments develop better protocols for tracking and profiling serial offenders. And the Boy in the Box case is a testament to the power of persistence and the incredible potential of new technology. They've also taught us about the responsibility of the media in reporting on crime, the critical importance of securing a crime scene, the need for better coordination between different law enforcement agencies, and the immense value of keeping these cases alive in the public consciousness. 6 chilling, unsolved cases from American history. The Sodder children, who vanished into the smoke of a Christmas Eve fire. Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, whose shocking murder became a Hollywood legend. The Zodiac Killer, who held Northern California in a grip of terror. The Tylenol poisoner, who made every American look twice at their medicine cabinet. Joseph Zarelli, the boy in the box who finally got his name back after 65 years. And Jimmy Hoffa, the powerful union boss who simply disappeared. These cases remind us that justice isn't always swift, and sometimes it doesn't seem to come at all. But they also remind us of something incredibly powerful, that people don't forget. Families keep searching. Investigators keep working. Communities keep caring. And sometimes, even decades later, the answers finally emerge from the shadows. The truth is out there, somewhere, waiting to be discovered. And as long as these cases remain unsolved, people will keep searching for it. Because every victim deserves justice. Every family deserves answers. And every mystery, no matter how old, deserves another look. These 6 cases may be unsolved, but they are not, and will never be, forgotten. And perhaps that's the most important thing of all. Thank you for watching. If you have any information, no matter how small, about any of these cases, please contact the appropriate law enforcement agencies. Your tip could be the key that finally brings a resolution to one of these enduring mysteries. Please consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's most compelling stories.